Something just blew up in the pro-black community, and it's bigger than most people realize. Tariq Nasheed, a longtime voice on black issues, and Captain Tariq, a prominent Hebrew Israelite leader, are now in a public disagreement, and it all started over a single claim by a controversial online figure, T.S. Giselle. This isn't just drama, it's about leadership, representation, and who really gets to speak for the community. By the end of this video, you'll see why this feud matters, what it says about online black spaces, and why so many people are talking about it. Stick around, you're not going to want to miss this. In recent days, a notable disagreement has emerged between two prominent figures in the pro-black community, Tariq Nasheed and Captain Tariq. These are individuals who have built reputations over time and carry influence in different circles, especially within spaces that focus on black identity, culture, and empowerment. To provide context, Tariq Nasheed is a widely recognized author, filmmaker, and social media personality who has been outspoken on issues impacting black communities for decades. He has cultivated a dedicated following online and offline, often sparking discussions and, sometimes, heated debates around leadership, respect, and ideological differences in the pro-black movement. Captain Tariq, on the other hand, is a Hebrew Israelite who has made a name for himself through his engagement with communities on the East Coast, particularly via Sir TV and other online platforms. He has a significant social media presence and is known for his passionate discussions about black identity, history, and self-determination. Now, I want to make one thing perfectly clear. I do not have any personal issues with either of these men. Both have contributed to the broader dialogue in meaningful ways, albeit through different lenses. I have personally interviewed Captain Tariq in the past, and while our belief systems do not align perfectly, I have found his insights to be intellectually stimulating and reflective of a genuine commitment to his community. There is a level of respect that comes from acknowledging someone's dedication and effort, even if you do not agree with every point they make. In Tariq's case, his consistent engagement in public discourse, his willingness to debate, and his dedication to educating others about his understanding of Hebrew Israelite philosophy and teachings demonstrate a level of commitment that is hard to ignore. Before this disagreement, Tariq had largely maintained a reputation as someone who is thoughtful and measured in his approach. He has never been known to stir up unnecessary conflict or create chaos for the sake of attention. His content, while strong in opinion, usually reflects the teachings and principles of his faith and community. He has traveled and spoken extensively, holding discussions and debates in various parts of the country. His credibility within certain circles of the Hebrew Israelite movement is well established, and he has earned a level of respect for being consistent, articulate, and unapologetic about his beliefs. However, the current conflict marks a notable shift in his public interactions, largely because it revolves around a controversial figure in the online black space, a transgender individual named T.S. Giselle. T.S. Giselle has become something of a polarizing figure on black Twitter and other social media spaces, often described by many as a troll who seeks attention and disruption. Trolls, in this context, are individuals who deliberately provoke, confuse, or incite emotional reactions from communities by posting controversial, misleading, or inflammatory content. T.S. Giselle's recent activity, including asserting themselves as the Queen of the FBA, an online faction within black communities, drew the attention of Captain Tariq, who felt compelled to reach out directly to Tariq Nasheed to clarify the situation. The title of Queen of the FBA was more than just a provocative claim. It represented an attempt to position a transgender individual in a space historically dominated by men who identify as heterosexual within black activist communities. From Tariq's perspective, such a claim could potentially undermine the structure, credibility, and authenticity of the FBA and related online movements. His concerns appear to have been motivated not by personal animosity toward T.S. Giselle, but by a broader commitment to maintaining what he perceives as the integrity of leadership and representation within black spaces. Tariq's approach was direct. He reached out to Tariq Nasheed, who is widely regarded as a leading voice in these spaces, to confirm whether T.S. Giselle's claim had any legitimacy or recognition. From his point of view, going straight to the source was a logical and respectful course of action, especially given the historical context in which misinformation and online trolling can quickly escalate into public controversy. Tariq, at some point in response, publicly expressed skepticism toward T.S. Giselle's claim and issued warnings to others not to fall for it. While the exact timing of this response is somewhat unclear, it nevertheless ignited a series of discussions and debates across social media platforms. This scenario exemplifies the modern challenges faced by online communities, especially those focused on black empowerment. Social media provides a platform for rapid communication and dissemination of ideas, but it also amplifies conflicts, misunderstandings, and misrepresentations. A single claim, even if baseless, can quickly become a point of contention when influential figures are involved. In this case, the intersection of online trolling, issues of gender identity, and questions of leadership and legitimacy created a combustible mix that drew in prominent voices like Tariq and Nasheed. It is also worth noting that disputes like this are not merely about personalities or public image. They reflect deeper debates about values, identity, and community standards. Tariq's concern about T.S. Giselle touches on broader questions regarding who has the authority to represent or lead within Black activist spaces, how communities define authenticity, and the role of social media in mediating these discussions. On the other hand, Tariq Nasheed's public response, while critical, reflects his own approach to these issues, addressing potential misinformation, warning his followers, and asserting his perspective on the matter. Ultimately, what we are witnessing is a microcosm of larger tensions within online pro-Black spaces. Conflicts arise not just from ideological differences but also from differing interpretations of leadership, representation, and respect. Both Tariq Nasheed and Captain Tariq operate in spaces that carry real influence, which means that even small disputes can gain disproportionate attention and spark widespread conversation. It is within this context that the disagreement over T.S. Giselle's claim should be understood, as a collision between two respected voices navigating the complexities of online community dynamics, identity politics, and the challenges of maintaining authority and authenticity in digital spaces. In short, this disagreement highlights both the power and pitfalls of online activism. It demonstrates how quickly controversies can escalate when influential voices are involved, and it underscores the importance of communication, verification, and respect for the structures and traditions of specific communities. While neither Tariq Nasheed nor Captain Tariq intended for this situation to become a full-blown conflict, the involvement of T.S. Giselle and the online reactions made it inevitable. It serves as a reminder of the ongoing negotiations around leadership, credibility, and identity within the pro-Black digital space. Tariq essentially called out those who were spreading misinformation about T.S. Giselle. He questioned, in a very direct way, the legitimacy of the claim. Meanwhile, Captain Tariq defended himself, saying Tariq was indirectly referring to him without mentioning his name. Tariq explained that he had simply asked Tariq, as a prominent figure in the space, whether T.S. Giselle was actually recognized by the FBA. His concern was about accuracy, not causing drama. Yet Tariq labeled him a COINTEL proxy, which is essentially accusing him of being a plant. Tariq's larger point, however, was about representation. He questioned why straight men, who are supposed to lead foundational Black movements, would allow a gay or transgender individual to claim leadership roles in their space. He argued that in the Hebrew Israelite movement, such a scenario would never be tolerated, yet in the FBA, it seemed to be not only tolerated but even celebrated. This dispute quickly escalated online. Captain Tariq has recently uploaded several videos on YouTube discussing the matter in depth. He's critiqued the FBA community, pointing out what he sees as inconsistencies and a lack of respect, leadership, or ethical standards. He wrote tweets summarizing his frustrations, saying things like, #FBA on X Twitter will never be respected. You can create content, host spaces, get views, but no one will ever take you seriously. You are a joke on X. He also clarified that expressing these opinions doesn't mean he wants to engage directly with FBA spaces. He sees them as unworthy of debate. Yet, despite saying this, he continues to respond publicly, creating content about the situation. This paradox highlights the tension. If a group truly isn't worth debating, why give them attention? Tariq's critiques also extend to the notion of who is considered part of the community. He includes Blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans in his definition of his people, which is a stance that not everyone in his Hebrew Israelite sect agrees with. This is one of the points where I personally disagree with him, particularly the inclusion of Hispanics and Native Americans alongside Blacks. But again, these are internal debates within his belief system. What's immediately apparent in this whole situation is that this disagreement between Captain Tariq and Tariq Nasheed cannot be taken as a reflection of the Hebrew Israelite movement as a whole. It is crucial to understand that Captain Tariq is speaking strictly from his perspective within a particular sect, the ISUP, which stands for the Israelite School of Universal Practical Knowledge. This sect is one of the larger branches of the Hebrew Israelite movement, and like many religious or ideological groups, it has its own interpretations, practices, and internal dynamics that do not necessarily mirror those of other sects or factions. The Hebrew Israelite movement is far from monolithic. It encompasses a wide spectrum of beliefs, from highly conservative approaches to more modernized interpretations, and includes members from different regions, cultural backgrounds, and philosophies. Therefore, to take Captain Tazarok's statements or critiques and generalize them to the entire Hebrew Israelite community would be misleading and unfair. This distinction is particularly important because much of the controversy is being observed by individuals who are outside of the movement entirely. Online spaces, especially those on platforms like Twitter and YouTube, often amplify individual opinions as if they represent an entire group or community. When someone like Captain Tazarok speaks publicly about an issue, such as the presence of Ts Giselle within the FBA community, outsiders may be quick to assume that his stance reflects the consensus of all Hebrew Israelites. In reality, that is far from the truth. Each sect within the movement has its own internal governance, cultural norms, and interpretations of scripture, and members often disagree on critical social, cultural, and theological issues. So while Captain Tazarok's comments are significant within the context of his sect and personal philosophy, they should not be viewed as a universal declaration of belief for the entire Hebrew Israelite movement. Another layer to consider is the nature of the disagreement itself. At its core, this conflict revolves around online community dynamics, trolling, and representation within spaces like Black Twitter and the FBA. While the debate has garnered attention because it involves high-profile figures like Tazarok and Nazheed, the substance of the disagreement is relatively narrow. It concerns how the FBA community responded to Ts Giselle, the claim to leadership, and what is considered appropriate representation in pro-Black spaces. From a broader perspective, these are questions that are internal to specific online communities and do not necessarily reflect the doctrinal or spiritual priorities of the Hebrew Israelite movement. With that in mind, my personal take is that the energy and time Captain Tazarok has invested in this particular controversy may not be the most productive use of his influence. The ISUP and other Hebrew Israelite organizations have built entire structures of teaching, outreach, and education that are inherently valuable. These movements and communities have the potential to impact lives, foster understanding, and provide frameworks for cultural and spiritual empowerment. If Tazarok's work is genuinely strong and rooted in legitimacy, it should be able to stand on its own merits without needing to enter into extended online arguments or respond to provocations on social media. The power of a movement comes not from its engagement in every controversy but from the consistency, credibility, and effectiveness of its message and actions. Engaging in back-and-forth arguments about hashtags, trending topics, or online communities can inadvertently diminish the perceived strength of the work Tazarok and his sect are doing. Social media thrives on conflict, controversy, and virality, often rewarding attention-grabbing reactions rather than thoughtful discourse. By focusing too heavily on responding to online disputes, there is a risk that the broader audience may come to associate Tazarok and his community more with controversy than with the substantive teachings and initiatives they promote. The attention may generate temporary visibility, but it does not necessarily translate into long-term influence, credibility, or meaningful change. In other words, the energy spent chasing online conflicts could be redirected into initiatives that strengthen the community, build educational programs, and expand the reach of the movement in ways that have tangible impact. Moreover, the principle of leadership within any movement or community implies a degree of confidence in one's own work. If the ISUP or Tazarok's teachings are robust, compelling, and effective, they should naturally attract followers, engagement, and respect. The strength of a movement lies in the ability of its principles and actions to resonate independently, without requiring constant validation or reactive engagement with detractors. When a community consistently measures its relevance through the lens of online approval or by the need to counter every perceived slight, it risks eroding its own authority. True influence comes from creating something that educates, inspires, and stands resilient, regardless of external commentary or social media debates. In this context, it is entirely possible for Captain Tazarok and his sect to continue their mission, educate their followers, and expand their reach without feeling compelled to address every single online controversy. There will always be distractions, provocateurs, and individuals seeking to incite conflict, whether intentionally or inadvertently. Maintaining focus on the core work, teaching, community building, and empowerment ensures that the message remains clear and that the integrity of the movement is preserved. By doing so, the movement can demonstrate that its strength is intrinsic and does not depend on reactions to external criticism or the need to prove itself in a digital debate. In summary, the current disagreement is a specific conflict situated within online communities and the interactions of high-profile individuals, rather than a representation of all Hebrew Israelites. Captain Tariq is speaking from his own perspective within ISUP, and it is important to understand that his views do not automatically reflect the beliefs of other sects or the wider movement. At the same time, the controversy serves as a reminder of the challenges posed by social media, where individual voices can be amplified and misinterpreted as universal positions. For the sake of the movement's long-term strength and credibility, it may be more effective for Tariq to focus on the inherent value of his teachings and the work of his community, allowing the movement to shine through its own merit rather than through reactive online disputes. In summary, what we see with Captain Tariq is a situation that highlights both the strengths and the challenges of leadership and influence within certain online Black communities. He is raising concerns that are legitimate and deserve attention. Issues around representation, ethics, and respect are not trivial. These are foundational elements in any community, especially in movements that seek to empower and educate Black people, promote cultural awareness, and establish credible leadership. While Tariq's concerns about representation, ethics, and respect are important, the manner in which he is engaging may not be the most effective strategy to achieve his goals. There is a risk that by focusing on online disputes, the attention shifts from the core message of the movement to the drama surrounding the dispute. This is not to say that accountability and critique are unimportant. Rather, it is a reminder that strategic engagement matters. Leaders and influencers have to carefully consider when it is productive to respond and when it is better to let the strength of their work and community speak for itself. In many cases, the latter approach preserves credibility, reinforces authority, and allows the movement to maintain its focus on long-term objectives rather than short-term controversies. At this moment, that is essentially where things stand in the broader pro-Black online space. These disputes, while interesting and newsworthy, are a snapshot of a much larger ecosystem, a space where ideas, representation, and ethics are constantly being negotiated and debated. It is up to the audience to interpret these events, draw their own conclusions, and decide what lessons to take away. Some may see this as a cautionary tale about online engagement and the risks of overextending energy on social media disputes. Others may view it as an important discussion about accountability, representation, and the responsibility of leaders to maintain the integrity of their movements. Ultimately, the choice of what to focus on lies with the observer. What is clear is that the core work, the teaching, the community building, and the empowerment, remains the most meaningful and impactful aspect of Tariq's efforts. If the movement continues to focus on these fundamentals, it will retain its strength and relevance regardless of temporary online controversies. And on that note, that wraps up today's discussion. This is your boy, Ohia Duke Jackson, back with another episode of Best Junk. I appreciate every single one of you for tuning in, engaging with the content, and being part of this ongoing conversation. Don't forget to hit the bell so you can stay updated on future episodes. Keep questioning, keep thinking critically, and as always, stay engaged. We'll catch you next time. Peace, and we're out.